What is up, faithful? I don't know if you heard, but John Lynch spoke today about Brandon Ayuk, the 2024 NFL Draft. Brian talked about Brandon Ayuk, and a lot of stuff came out of that. Talked about the draft in terms of what is happening there. We're also going to give you guys a few players that the 49ers should draft. Jay Harp's going to give us his favorite receivers right after this. What is up? What is up? What is up? Faithful, how's it going, Jay Harp?
What's going on, Marco? What's going on?
Nothing much, man. I mean, John Lynch spoke earlier today. I know, bro. I wasn't gonna initially wasn't gonna do it Niner gang, but what I needed to do is I needed to drink a sip of water, and I cut my grass earlier today, and my lips were burning, so I had to put some chapstick on real quick. But Jay Harp, you talked to me real quick. You were talking behind the stage, and you said you played some flag football this weekend. How'd that go?
Oh man, I'm tore up right now. It went good though. It was good to get out there and run around. It was a good mixture of older players, older than me, but then the younger players. I see I'm not really keeping up with them. I'm not really keeping up with the 29 and unders no more. So I was playing DB. I had to play a little far off the ball. But it went good. We won some games, lost some games. It was just fun to get back out there, man, and throw the football around.
That's what's up. That's what's up. So I don't know if you got to hear John Lynch speak today. I know I sent you a couple like the quotes that he said and stuff like that. So we'll pretty much get straight into it, and then we'll get into some draft talk because the draft is on Thursday. Is it in Vegas this year again, or is it in Nashville?
I don't think it's in Vegas. I haven't seen anything up in Vegas.
Yeah, because I know last year it is in Detroit. This is Detroit, Michigan this year. That's pretty cool. Well, for me, one of those ones where I caught like a couple of his quotes. I watched his thing. He said Niners will have a future. This is hella funny. Great tone. I'm gonna do a call-in show just so you could call in and talk about that this week. But one of the quotes I took from John Lynch, he said, "We want BA around his whole career," and then right after that, they asked if he's given BA permission as he could trade, and John Lynch didn't answer.
Mm-hmm.
Like he kind of avoided the question, skipped around it, and then he ends up. They ask him, "Oh, do you anticipate to have Brandon Ayuk on the roster after Friday, which would be round 2?" And he's like, "Yeah, I don't anticipate him not being on our roster." What are your thoughts on John Lynch speaking about Brandon Ayuk? He also did mention that they're in communications for a contract and he wants to get it done sooner. What's the holdup? What's going on with Brandon Ayuk's situation in Santa Clara? Is this a 49ers issue? Is this a player issue? Because they always tend to have a really hard time getting contracts done with their veteran-like players who are going to get paid mega millions on any team. Like if they hit the open market, they're getting cashed out. A team could trade for any of these players, yet they're always reluctant to give them their money up front. Why is that?
Man, it's like a lot of the fine print in the contracts. That's most of the time, and like bonuses and total value. Those are the type of things that really hold back. Getting the deals done right away. I don't think it should though. Personally, like if you're eventually going to give this player a certain type of deal, let's just go. Like let's go, let's get it, let's get the deal done. Let's not try to win the deal, as a team, right? If you're eventually just going to do the deal that the player wants or the team wants down the road. But I think that's what it is. It's a lot of rope pulling. We want this, we want that. Okay, well, can we get this? And maybe it's BA wanting to reset the market, which is crazy to me. I think BA deserves somewhere a little above Devontae Smith. I don't think he deserves to reset the market. And if that's the case, if he's not going to play unless he resets the market, I think the Niners, have a problem on their hands.
And they definitely when I was looking at like the way it sounded like when a general manager says we want this player to be on our roster for his entirety of his career, and then he mentioned also he's also on a 5th-year option. Like he kind of threw that out there. Like if he has to play it out, he'll play it out.
Yeah.
That's what we're willing to do. If the 49ers were to trade a guy like Brandon Ayuk, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can the organization truly tell the fan base they're all in to win a Super Bowl this year, or tell themselves that without looking in the mirror and know they're lying? Because if you trade BA, there's no way you're all in on winning a Super Bowl this year. So when John Lynch was saying all this stuff, I'm like, wait, quit the cap. Like, why are you lying to everyone? You're not. Just be straight up. We're not going to move him. Because then you also know teams are going to call. When when that happens, things like kind of like speculating, but also saying he wants Brandon Ayuk on the roster. What would you say to that?
Oh man, just stop the cap. You're not trading Brandon Ayuk. This team is not in a position to trade Brandon Ayuk. If you trade Brandon Ayuk, you're banking on a rookie receiver, which I'm pretty sure they would draft if they trade Brandon Ayuk in the first round. So they're banking on a rookie receiver to come in and produce similar numbers, if not better numbers than what Ayuk did. And that's just not always the case. It's hit or miss. We've seen it once with Javon Kinlaw, right? And DeForest Buckner. You think you can just, add people into the same situation and it is going to turn out the same way as Buckner? No, that's not the case. So it's really like it's a crapshoot. Will you hit on that receiver? Will you not? 10 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, I don't think the receiver coming in is going to produce the same type of plays that Brandon Ayuk has over these years. So Brandon Ayuk is going to be better than any rookie coming in this year.
And this is a great question because I know a lot of people on Twitter, Facebook. I go on Facebook just to post like my YouTube stuff, and sometimes here and there I click on like a comment section, and a lot of people really don't believe in Brandon Ayuk's abilities. Is he a true number one? Because you obviously, like we've talked about this, but is he a true number one in the NFL? Like if he was to go, for example, to go play football with Josh Allen, who needs a number one receiver, what kind of numbers are we expecting from him, and what is he going to produce as that number one? Is he one of those kind of top guys?
One, he is a number one receiver. I don't know why people are doubting it. Niner gang, he's definitely a number one receiver. If he was playing with Josh Allen in that pass happy offense, he's going to produce numbers similar to what the best years of Stephon Diggs in that organization. He would produce similar numbers, if not better. He's a number one. He's a number one on any team. And when I say any team, I'm not saying he's the best receiver in the NFL. I'm saying it would be a 1A, 1B type of situation. So yes, Brandon Ayuk is a clear-cut number one receiver.
I do agree. I do think John Lynch did seem nervous. Niner gang, go back. We did Jay Harp and I did an episode where we actually ranked our top 10 receivers in the NFL right now. And I believe Jay Harp had him at 12. I could be wrong. I think that was like the range he had him at. But you go back, check that video out, and you can see who we had there. John Lynch ends up talking about, they asked him a question about the bloodline players, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brendan Rice, Tariq Owens, Luke McCaffrey, Frank Gore Jr. And he talked about how he believes in the bloodlines, and he thinks having that bloodline plays a factor. I was just curious, what do you think in terms of that? Like, is that really a factor? Does that play a factor into what a player could be in the NFL or how good a player could be? Because there's a lot of players like that in this year's draft. We got Chris Jenkins, defensive tackle. We have other players who have that bloodline. Now, a lot of fans, or just Niner fans, I guess, are looking at the dudes who are connected bloodline-wise to the 49ers. Does that play a factor into how good you can be or what you're expected to do in the NFL?
Man, that's putting a lot on them kids, man. Like if you're saying that Terrell Owens' son could be what Terrell Owens is, that's putting a lot of pressure on him. I don't really believe in that bloodline. I think they need to. I think it's best that we let them do their own path. Grade them off what they have done in college and not what their father has done in the NFL, because that's putting a lot of pressure on them. Like, Terrell Owens is one of the best receivers to ever do it, and I'm just hearing about his son. No disrespect, and I'm just hearing about his son, this year. Like, so he wasn't really making any headwaves and doing Terrell Owens type of things. So, and similar like Frank Gore too. Like, come on, man, Frank Gore is one of the best running backs to ever wear a 49ers uniform. So we think his son is just gonna come in and produce similarly. I don't believe in the bloodline type of thing. I do believe in, like, if the time is right and we have a decent grade on that former 49ers player's kid, I do believe in taking that player at the right time, not reaching or anything like that, but taking that player at the right time and bringing him into the family.
I mean, it's hard. It's hard when you have a player's dad who is an all-time great, right? Like Jerry Rice's son. Like, it's hard because people are propping him because who his dad is. And as I'm watching his film, I'm like, I don't see it. Like, I think he's a really good player, but tight hips, doesn't run great routes, more bully ball than anything. And I'm like, man, people are trying to compare him to his pops, man. His pops one of the best route runners I've ever watched. Like, that's where I'm like, well, hold up, wait. Out of all the players who have had someone bloodline wise in the NFL or ex NFL players, I think the ones that are related to the Niners, I think Frank Gore Jr. is the best player out of all of them, and I wouldn't draft him until the 4th or 5th round. Right. I think he has the versatility to do a lot of things, but then again, he's a smaller running back, so you're gonna expect him to be kind of like a Darren Sproles type in order for allowing him to build his muscle and his NFL strength. Luke McCaffrey tested outrageously, but he's just a 1-year receiver. John Lynch mentioned 22 first-round draft picks, right? So that's the amount of grades they have on players, which means the 49ers are going to get someone who is a second rounder. If everyone goes like their guys, at pick 31, they're getting a guy they have a second round grade with. Do you think this impacts how the 49ers like kind of operate this draft? Do they trade up? Do they trade down just to gain those picks and get a true second round player? What do you expect them to do with only having 22 first round picks or first round grades? My bad.
So yeah, I think the Niners have shown that they're aggressive during the draft. They've shown their willingness to trade during the draft, move up, take their guy. And I think this year is not going to be anything different. I think out of those 22 players, once it gets closer to that 31 pick, if there's still players there, they'll wait. If the pickings become slim, I think that they'll pull the trigger and move up in the draft. And like I said, they've shown in recent history, like they're willing to do that. So I don't think this year is any different.
Is there any positions you think they could go up and move it to get a player? I know a lot of people want offensive tackle. Is there anything else outside of offensive tackle that you're like, damn, like this class is pretty deep at that level? They could replace someone on this team if they trade up and go get them.
Yeah, so I think personally, I think they're identifying a corner or a receiver, and if that player happens to fall somewhat far enough for them to go ahead and trade up and go ahead and grab that player that they highlighted and they have that first round grade on, I think they will. I think as far as like offensive line, I think that they're fine with the 5 that they have. I think they are. I don't like it. The tackle, what's his name from West Virginia? I don't like it.
Man.
But I think they're fine with it. And they're on record saying that he played well. I guess they gave him a new contract. It's a contract. I'm not saying that's a starter contract, but it's somebody who they believe in. That's what type of contract they gave. They believe in him to either bridge that gap or be there until they find that replacement. So I know the fans want an offensive tackle, but I think they put themselves in a position where they can get their best available player.
And I think that's to me where I don't think they should trade up. I truly don't. When I watch them, this draft is a draft where it's too pivotal of a draft to trade up for a guy where you're most likely going to give up a pick, your 31 overall pick this year. And if a team's truly wanting to win this deal, I don't see how you give a first and a second to trade up 15 spots to get into the teens or early 20s. Like, I don't see how you do. You got to give up at least a first, possibly a second, and a future pick, whether that's a third or if a team's wanting, you know what, give me pick 31, but I want your next year. I want your next year's one too. I don't think the Niners have the luxury to do that this year. You got too many holes after this year. You have 39 free agents, unrestricted free agents. Both of your, all three of your, all your starting corners actually potentially are all free agents after the year. You have situation with Deebo Samuel that you have to worry about. George Kittle, you have to pay Brock Purdy. Like, you can't be trading up and getting a player that you're in love with, because if you miss on that player you're in love with, you're back to square one, having to replace dudes with no picks. And I think that was an issue when they did it with Trey Lance. So for me, I'm kind of worrisome if they do trade up. Do you expect them to trade up or trade down or just stay pat?
No, I think they're gonna trade up. They've identified a few players. I think they're gonna trade up, and this is my personal opinion. I think if they feel comfortable with the player that's sliding and they feel like they can get him at 31, they'll stand pat. If they feel like they can get a player who they have high, a high grade on that may slip into the teens, I think they're gonna trade up for sure.
So shout out to 49ers Throwback, always in the chat, giving us great clips when he listens to 95.7 a game. He said, TJ, I'm not going to try to say his last name because I always butcher it. Shout out to TJ. So he said, is Brandon Aiyuk's he's Brandon Aiyuk's personal receiver coach. And he said, I talked to BA. He doesn't want to leave San Francisco. He just wants to get paid. I think that should just end all the drama there. When one of your closest people is going on record and saying he doesn't want to leave San Francisco, he just wants to get paid. Tells you a lot. Like, the Niners don't want him to leave. They just want to pay him when the time is right, and that's not now. They never do it before the draft. It's going to be after. Now, there's a lot of receivers in this draft class. A lot of receivers. Which one do the 49ers need to draft? And like, one of those dudes you're like, you know what? It could be in the first round. It could be second, third. Shit, it could be a guy. It could be a guy in the seventh round. You're like, you know what? He's gonna fall so far, but he's gonna make everyone hate that they didn't draft him. Is there any guys like that in this draft class?
Man, I just hope that AD Mitchell drops. I really love his game, and I've told you, and you said the similar things that you love his game. I really love AD Mitchell's game, but I think he'll go higher than people think. But
I personally think he goes 15 to the Colts.
Yeah, I think that's around the range that he's going to go in. But if they don't, I really want the Niners to take a hard look at Javon Baker from USF. Is it
UCF, University of Central Florida?
Yeah, love his game. He can run routes, but he can also play well after the catch. I think I told you, like, I think if he ran, I know 4.5 is not slow, but if he ran faster, if he ran a low 4.4, he'll have a first round grade. Definitely easy.
So give us a scouting report on him. Like, so you said he could get going after the catch. He could run good routes. What would you expect him to be in Kyle's offense? Like, what is he gonna become in Kyle's offense? Is what I'm trying to say.
So he's a Kyle type of player. He blocks. He can make things happen after the catch, but he also runs crisp routes. He can also go up and get the ball. So you don't usually get all those in a receiver. But you know, Aiyuk is a player that can do that. I'm not saying he's going to be Aiyuk, but he has the similar types of things he can do on the field. It's similar to what Aiyuk can do as far as playing after the catch, running routes, getting open on one-on-one coverage, going up 50-50 balls. He can do it. And you know, he doesn't have the breakaway speed, but he showed it in college that he can, you know, break away from, you know, when the time comes. So he has that ability.
And would this be a pick where he's contributing day one, or is it more like, you know what, we have that big contract with Debo's coming up. We got to eventually think about that. We might not keep Debo in our plans. I know that's something that's going to be talked about for the next year and a half. Is that where he would replace Debo and be that number 2 receiver to Brandon Ayuk?
Yeah, so I think he's that type of player. Like, you don't need Debo to be on the field downs 1 through 3. If you draft a actual receiver, and not no shade at Debo, if you draft an actual receiver, you won't need Debo to be on the field every single play, and that will preserve him. That will hopefully keep him healthy throughout the year, and allow him to just can focus on doing everything. You know, he's a jack of all trades. Let him focus on being a jack of all trades, right? So yeah, if they get a player like Javon Baker, he would step in. He would play. He will play right away. I'm not saying he'll be the surefire number 2, but he'll get snaps like he is the number 2 for sure.
And that's I mean, not necessarily shade at Debo Samuel. Like, we know what Debo's been across the NFL. For me, I don't know if you ended up watching him. I think Cornelius Johnson.
Not yet. I'm watching though.
Cornelius Johnson for me is that guy you go and draft. 6'3". Well, I think he might be 2. I could be wrong, but he came in at 6'2", has the speed, has the physical traits. NFL everything. Like, you're watching him. I think he ran a 4.45. At 6'2", 6'3". He blocks really well. He runs better routes than people give him credit for, in my opinion. I think for me, what sold me was I had the luxury to watch him at the East West Shrine Bowl game. I got a lot of film from there, and he was one of the standouts. So I was like, damn, like, I have not heard of this dude. Like, who's this? Turn on the film at Michigan, and I just felt like Michigan's offense is too old school. Right. It was too, hey, you know what, Blake Corum, let's go downhill. All our tight ends are going to be our main guys. J.J. McCarthy, and this is why a lot of people are having trouble giving J.J. McCarthy a grade, because they didn't really run an NFL-like or a college-like system. They went old school. I'm going to run the ball down your throat. Blake Corum's going to score 25-plus touchdowns this year, and we're going to win a championship that way. And that's, for me, it kind of hurt a lot of their players. And Cornelius Johnson is that guy for me. Now, the 49ers they don't just one need. They have, in my opinion, I feel like the Niners have a lot of needs this year. And what I mean by that is their offensive line. At some point, we know Trent Williams is getting close to retirement. Colton McKivitz isn't that dude. Like, he's not a surefire starter. The right guard situation, it's a journeyman who is probably going to be starting. Your center's a journeyman who's going to be starting. Your left guard needs to get paid. So offensive line's an issue. The cornerbacks are all going to be unrestricted free agents. Your second linebacker is coming off a torn Achilles, and I believe he's supposed to be a free agent. George Kittle's going to get paid a lot of money, where the Niners have to make a decision on Debo Samuel. So a lot of these players you might have to replace for next year. So going into this draft, is there any positions that you're like, you know what, the Niners must come away with this position, at least one of them, or two could be how many as you want? Is there a position that's, you know what, we have to draft?
Yeah. Honestly, I think I'll hold all 3 positions that I'm about to say equally. And that's offensive line. You got to get like you said, a guard and offense tackle, a receiver, because I really do feel like they're I don't think Debo's in the long-term plans. So you need another receiver to complement Brandon Ayuk. And then and corner. In corner, we don't know what's gonna, like, Charvarius Ward is gonna be a free agent. Or is it Charvarius Ward going to be a free agent?
Charvarius Ward's a free agent coming up. Demo, and then Avery Thomas is in his last year. And then the 2 dudes they signed, they're both 1-year contracts. So it's like everyone's literally up. Yeah. The only one who has money that affects the Niners, I believe, is Charvarius Ward. He has a dead cap next year. I don't know if that rolls over and they have to eat that dead cap or how that works, but he does have dead cap for next year.
So yeah, those are the 3 positions. A corner, we pass on corners all the time. Like, we don't have a top talented corner because we don't draft corners high. We went out and got Charvarius Ward, which has paid off. and then a receiver. And we had to they have to start at some point. They have to invest in the offensive lineman again, because they haven't since it was it the offensive
The
tackle
last
from Notre Dame
the last offensive tackle, their last offensive lineman they drafted
or
high.
Aaron Banks.
I would consider Aaron Banks. He's a second rounder. But even then, like that's like you're saying, corner. I can't think of a corner we drafted in the first 2 rounds since Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch took over. They took Ambry Thomas in the 3rd. After that, everyone else has been late round draft picks or guys they sign as free agents. And I think that's a lot. Do you think, that's where I'm going to go a different route.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the Niners need to have a philosophy change heading into the NFL draft? And what I mean by that is, do they have to have a different approach defensively and offensively? I've been talking to a lot of people on the shows about this. I don't know if you have talked about this yet, but do the Niners need to become a more of a pass-friendly, pass-happy offense? And defensively, do they need to become more of a secondary first kind of defense in order to win a championship? Because what we've seen from the Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch era to this day, they could get there with what they have, but they can't win it because they're going up against explosive offense and Patrick Mahomes, and their defense isn't built to slow down an elite quarterback like that. Every elite quarterback we play usually tears us apart in the secondary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, if Bosa and the defensive line don't get home, they have no shot. So as far as like a philosophy change, I agree that it needs to be more balanced. Okay, I know defensive line is probably the most important position on the defense, but at some point we have to go out and get a young, talented corner who we think can turn into an all-pro at some point, right? For those big games that we're playing, the Patrick Mahomes, where our defensive line may not get there, or they may be a tick too slow, but we have that guy in the back and that's locking shit down. You know what I'm saying? So they have to change that philosophy and make it more balanced and not just we're D-line. We'll worry about the defensive backfield later down the road, or we'll get a free agent. They just have to balance it a bit more.
And they did meet. The good thing is that they do seem to, like, in a way, they're looking at everything, because they met with Nate Wiggins. They've met with the offensive lineman. They've met with defensive linemen, receivers. So if they do get their hands on the top corner, I do think it could elevate their team much more. I mean, I don't think Nate Wiggins is the answer. I think he's a smaller frame corner, and I think those kind of guys, as an offensive-minded person, you're going to go straight. All right, you're 6'1", 170, and you've had issues stopping the run. All right, come down and tackle. See how your body lasts for a full 4 quarters of us just running it down your throat, and you're going up against a big offensive lineman every once in a while. Like, it's not going to do well for a corner like him who's shown struggles to fit the run. So for me, I'm going in this draft, I'm like, man, if the Niners don't come away with at least one of those 3 positions, it's kind of worrying. It's going to worry me. In the first 3 rounds, at least 2 of those positions need to be addressed.
For sure.
Like, this receiver class is deep. Offensive line class is deep. Corner's not too deep, but you could get some really good, talented corners. Like, for example, at pick 63, if Max Mountain falls, that's a solid pick, because now you have someone who could play inside and outside, up in press man. He could play off coverage. So there's a lot of things they need to do. I also had a question about something that's been brought up. Do you think the 49ers are good at drafting?
Oh man.
It's tough. I know this wasn't brought up. This wasn't brought up, and I was gonna send it to you, but it wasn't brought up. But earlier of the year, I saw people talking about the Niners not being able to draft, and I'm on the side where I don't think they're good at drafting. I think they've hit on a lot of picks early on in their tenure. Since then, when they had to actually draft, they have not been so. Like, they have not done so well. But I'm gonna go and pull up their draft picks history. Yeah, and I'm gonna name the couple of years, and then we'll go year by year since the Niners have had John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. So year 1, with their first pick, they took a bust, Solomon Thomas. Second pick, Reuben Foster. This is the same draft class. They didn't evaluate the quarterback position, so this is even worse. then they got 2 third rounders. They took Ahkello Witherspoon and they took a quarterback they thought was going to be better than Patrick Mahomes, CJ Beathard. Took a running back, Joe Williams, who never played a snap for the 49ers. Then they took in their 5th round, they took a phenomenal pick, George Kittle. Then they had Trent Taylor, who shout out to Trent Taylor, who's back. He's going to take every spot on the team, according to a lot of the fans. He's going to be your true number 1. He's replacing Brandon Ayuk. And then they took DJ Jones, who was a good pick for the Niners, and then he moved on because they didn't extend him. Peter Tom, I don't know how to say his last name, and then Adrian Colbert. That first draft class, only the reason why that draft class was solid was because of George Kittle and DJ Jones.
Yeah. And they're late round picks, so they just happened to pan out.
So that out of the 10 picks in that first draft class, George Kittle was a slam dunk. You could consider DJ Jones like a really, really good pick. I think Witherspoon in the 3rd round wasn't bad. But outside of those 3 picks, oh, geez. Like, that's a very, very first bad draft. Like, the worst draft you could possibly have for a team in your first draft class.
Definitely.
Then go ahead, my bad.
No, I mean, to have 2 first-round picks and not one of them pan out, that's crazy. For your first draft at that. So
then their second draft. And I'm curious to see what you have to say about this draft because I'm just going to go through on players they drafted. McGlinchey in the 1st, Pettis in the 2nd, Warner in the 3rd, Moore in the 3rd, Contavious Street in the 4th, DJ Reed in the 5th, 6th, Marcel Harris, and then 7th, Julian Taylor and Richie James. Out of those picks, which ones stood out and which ones were like, geez, that's a pretty bad draft. Like, why would they take that guy?
Well, Fred Warner, first of all, definitely hit on that 3rd round draft pick. And then McGlinchey was just he was just a guy out there. So geez on that. He's just a guy. When you draft somebody, when you draft somebody that high at the tackle position, you're expecting him to be a Pro Bowler, at the least, a Pro Bowler. So geez on that. And that's coming after missing on your other 1st round draft picks. So to not hit on that one, at least a Pro Bowl, at least getting some Pro Bowls, that's a yikes type of pick. And then I think I heard you say DJ Reed
from the Jets, an elite
Reed.
corner that they let walk.
Yes, so he ended up, and he was a Fresno State dude first. He was on scout team, when we were on the team together. But when you let somebody go like that, who you developed, he played a little bit here. You developed him, and just to let him walk, yikes! That's another yikes pick. You gotta capitalize on those picks. But other than that, yeah, Fred Warner saved that draft class. Glad they got an All-Pro linebacker in the 3rd round.
I think 2019 they had a pretty good draft, at least from my opinion. I think Nick Bosa landed into their laps because the Arizona Cardinals went Kyler Murray, and then Deebo Samuel in the 2nd, Jalen Hurd in the 3rd, Mitch Wisnowski in the 4th, Greenlaw in the 5th, Caden Smith in the 6th, School in the 6th, and Tim Harris in the 6th. Out of that draft class, you got 3 straight studs and a very good punter.
Yeah, I mean, you did what you were supposed to do in that draft class. I mean, that is probably their best class since they've been here. 100%.
And then that 2019 summer is when they traded away DeForest Buckner. Then this plays a big factor, like not mentioning who's being traded and why they're being traded, right? Like they trade away Buckner. First thing they do is they draft Javon Kinlaw. And then Ayuk in the 1st round, and then Colton McKivitz in the 5th, Charlie Warner in the 6th, and in the 7th, Jawan Jennings. That draft class, not too bad because you got Brandon Ayuk. Jennings in the 7th it's a steal, and McKivitz is a starter right now, so it's not that bad.
Yeah, I mean, but it's McKivitz. So,
but it's in the 5th. Like I gotta give them. They found a reliable starter in the 6th. So like I can't or in the 5th, so I can't be like, damn, that's a bad pick.
Right.
He played good enough that they decided that their 1st round pick in 2018 could walk.
Right. Similar production.
And then in 2021, we all know what happened. They traded their next 3 1st round picks for Trey Lance. That was ridiculous because they never let him play. Aaron Banks in the 2nd, Trey Sermon in the third, Ambry Thomas in the third, Jalen Moore in the fifth, Demo in the fifth, Hufanga in the fifth, and then Elijah Mitchell in the sixth. How would you consider that Trey Lance draft class?
Besides trading all those picks up to get Trey Lance, it was a really good draft. So I think those picks being traded overshadowed the rest of that draft, because even me, I'm like, man, they got all those players in that same draft. So you got Huff, you got
Demo,
starter, all pro, Banks, really good player. Like those are three dudes in one class that you got, and one of them was an all pro already, who's coming off an injury. You got a Demo who's a stud, and you got Banks who's a really good offensive lineman. So yeah, I think Trey Lance and those picks just overshadowed what the rest of that draft did. And I'm starting to see a trend. They're not good at the top of the draft, but they're pretty good at the lower parts of the draft, the fifth, sixth round draft picks.
You know, another trend I notice every year with the Niners, going back until 2017, is they'll draft someone early at whatever position. Later in the draft, they draft that same position just in case they miss on that the first guy they took. So it's like, it's an interesting approach. Like,
no confidence.
Right. And now 2022 is when, from 2022 on, is why we're in a tough situation with having to pay guys and guys leaving, right? 2022, they got Drake Jackson, Ty Davis Price, Danny Gray, Spencer Burford, Samuel Womack, Nick Zakel, Kalia Davis, Castro Fields, and Brock Purdy. If it wasn't for Brock Purdy, that's one of the worst draft classes you could have ever.
Yes, 100%. 100%. That's terrible.
Because the best player in that class is Spencer Burford, and he's a rotational right guard who struggles. Like, that's worrisome. And in last year's draft, they got Jair Brown. So far, so good. Jake Moody missing his kicks. Then they go Latu in the third, Luter in the fifth, Bill in the fifth, and then sixth round D winners, Braden Willis in the seventh, Bell in the seventh, and Graham in the seventh. Are we confident in them to fix the issues?
Now, look, I don't know. Now, the early parts of their draft history, were they getting lucky or were they actually hits? Because these last two drafts.
Do you think the first couple of years of the Shanahan and Lynch tenure here, do you think they relied more on their scouting department and guys like Adam Peters, guys like Rand Catheron, who's also a GM now? What's his name? He's with the Washington Commanders, and he was a GM with the Lions for a little bit.
Or no,
that's Peters. There's another dude that's with Peters over there.
I was Minshew or something like that.
Martin Mayhew. Do you think they relied a little bit more on those guys the first couple of years, and then John Lynch finally was like, wait, no, I'm the GM. I'm confident now. And then him and Kyle started making picks, because there's a trend. Like, the first couple of years, like, damn, like, they could draft. Yeah. And then after that, it's like, whoa, like up and down. So do you think that could be a factor into things?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think so for 100%, because when you're drafting like a tight end who wouldn't have been drafted to the sixth, seventh round, I think that has your offensive head coach written all over it. You know, when you're drafting a running back who doesn't even touch the field, I think that has, your offensive head coach written all over it. So I think it's more so, John listening to Kyle, letting him, like, okay, this is your guy. Okay, we're going to take him here. You feel comfortable? Third round? Okay, let's go. I think that has a lot to do with it. And they don't have those guys no more. And they were doing something right, because they're leading other teams now. Their personnel departments, they're leading other teams. So yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. And they got to figure that out. Can't have to keep having bad drafts.
And that's the thing that's been an issue, right, for Kyle Shanahan, right? Year one, he loved CJ Beathard, he loved Joe Williams, took them, both of them weren't good. Year two, he goes with Dante Pettis, who he really liked his route running ability, but then his mentality was an issue. Year three, goes Jalen Hurd, thinking he found some alien for the football field that he's going to turn into a monster.
Right.
Year 3, he goes Trey Sermon in the 3rd round, and then follows that up with the same mentality and going a 3rd round running back and a 3rd round receiver. And since then, like, it has not been well. Like you even mentioned Latu, like there's an issue of falling in love. In my opinion, I think they fall in love with players throughout the draft process.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're on the board, no matter where they're picking, they're taking that guy like that. And I think that is an issue.
100%. That's a big issue, and it's proven. Like those 3rd, 4th rounds, that's when you build depth of your team, right? Like that's when you either hit something that okay, we got a player here, or he at the least it's building depth. Like they're gonna be able to play. They can come in and play in a pinch, players like that. And these past couple years, they just haven't drafted those dudes.
Now, I don't want to just knock the Niners for not being able to draft, right? Because they get studs as undrafted free agents. They're really good at that. Like they're really good at evaluating stuff like that. What do the Niners need to do in order to have a successful draft this year? How many players? They have 11 picks, or 10 or 11 picks, whatever they may be. Now, you're not going to hit on your 7th rounders like that frequently. The Niners do it. They do it pretty often.
Yeah.
So how many players do they need to come away with this draft class for the future that are guys that will be contributing, whether that's this year, next year, or in their 2nd year, which would be their 2025 season?
So they need to come out with 2 guys that are dudes. Like they're gonna come in and they're gonna start 2 guys. That's not asking a lot. Come out with 2 guys that are dudes, and then another 2 to 3 players that can come in and play if need be, who will probably stick around the Niners for a long time and be good depth pieces, may start some games here and be pretty good for them when they need to be. And then so that's all I ask. Two studs and then 3 dudes who will stick around for a while and can come in and play and not miss a beat.
Do you think their 1st round player comes in and starts if they do trade up, or if they trade down? Do you think their 1st pick starts this year?
If he doesn't, I think it's a fail. I think it's a fail.
So if
they're not that they're not that deep to where the 49ers are really good, but they're not they have holes, right? They have a receiver they need to draft. They have an offensive tackle they need to draft. Even a corner. The corner can come in and kick Demo into the inside when it's time to go nickel package. So yeah, they have to bring in a starter with that 1st draft, with that 1st round pick.
If it's offensive lineman who's their 1st pick, hypothetically, do you think he comes in and wins a starting job? Because we've heard Kyle and John both say, "Hey, no, you know what? It's not." Even John said it today earlier during his press conference. It's like it's going to be really hard to come in and not just make the team, but if you want to be a starter, that's going to be a really hard job on our team. We have pretty much everything set. Do you think that's like coach speak, where it's like, "Oh no, we have everything set. Like whoever comes in is going to be a backup. They'll compete." Because you're not wrong. Like if they come away with that 31st overall pick, or they trade up and he's not starting year 1, even though I know you got to build for the future, which John Lynch mentioned as well with that 1st pick, I think it's a huge failure.
Yeah. I mean, and if they do go offensive tackle and he can't come in and beat West Virginia, I mean,
he doesn't even. Colton McKivitz is that bad when he's getting called West Virginia. Like that's pretty bad. I'm gonna start calling them that now. Oh, that's West Virginia.
If you can't come in and then we have bigger problems. If you can't come in and beat them out, so they gotta get a starter at 31.
Is there any corners in the draft class you like?
Yeah. I really like Kool-Aid, not just because of his name, but I feel like he's one of the better corners in the draft. He has the whole package, man. I'll be happy if the Niners draft him, if he falls to 31, or if they move up, a few spots to get him. I'll be happy. One, because honestly I don't remember the last time the Niners drafted a corner in the 1st round. Hell, even the 2nd round.
Man,
right?
That's
Witherspoon was in the 2nd or 3rd.
3rd. Yeah,
he was I don't remember.
Let me check this out now because I'm very curious.
Yeah, and that's not to say that all 1st round corners are something, but they have a certain talent to them that certain athleticism that they.
Do you consider Jimmy Ward?
Oh well, we knew he wasn't going to be a corner.
because they drafted him as a corner. They played him at corner. So
Was he a
even
nickel
if
or a straight corner?
I don't know if he was. I want to say he was nickel in college at Northern Iowa, or Illinois or wherever it was. But he was. They played him at corner, but he was obviously a safety. And then Eric Reed the year before. Man, going back, if we don't consider him a corner, which what they drafted him as, I'm already down to 2004, and there's not a first round corner.
It's been a minute.
I haven't even seen a second round corner.
That's the philosophy.
Yeah, that's
linemen. In
1998. They took a DB. R.W. McQuarters.
McQuarters. I remember that cat. R.W.
So that's, or actually no, Mike Rump in 2002.
Miami Hurricanes.
Man, that's an issue. Like, that's really an issue. And what's crazy is John Lynch, as a former Hall of Fame safety, doesn't think corner or the secondary is that important. That's kind of blew my mind in a way. Like, I thought their first couple of picks was gonna fix corner.
Yeah. I mean, and you look at the corners like that they draft late. Like, you don't see any ball hawks. Like, you don't see anybody coming up like, making a play at the ball. They're just like all covered. They don't do anything special. That's why you need to draft somebody in the first round, somebody that has special traits. They do special things on the field. That's why you draft. And
usually it's the better athlete. Usually, like you're gonna get the better athlete. Normally, the better athlete is possibly gonna be the better player in terms of he has higher upside. And I think that's the biggest thing is Witherspoon wasn't bad. Demo's not bad. They're not bad corners that they've taken. It's just, imagine if they would have took someone like Amika Fitzpatrick that year. Even though he's a safety, he makes plays on the ball. Or even there's a couple of years that they've had an opportunity to go corner and they don't. And I'm just like, all right. But that's pretty much it for today's episode in terms of football talk. Did you watch? It's gonna go little. It's coming little random questions.
Yeah.
Did you watch the boxing event, the Man of Boxing event, Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia?
Yeah, man. So look, I did. I watched it, and I knew. I'm not gonna say I called it, but I knew. I was talking in the group chats, and I was talking to a few of my friends, and I was saying that Ryan Garcia is gonna give Haney problems. One, I don't think he's crazy. I think he's selling boxing. He's doing a really good job. People tuned into that fight not only because it was going to be a good fight, but because of the antics that Ryan Garcia was putting on, which is great for boxing. Keep on doing it, and he came out on top. Like, Ryan Garcia, I mean, Haney to me is a bit overrated, but Ryan Garcia, he has a punch to him. He has something to him where at any time he can drop your opponent. You can drop your opponent. So, and he did multiple times. So
it was way too many times. It should have been over when he dropped him 3 times in a round.
Yeah, the ref prolonged that. It should have been TKO.
Man, it was crazy is people were out there saying, because Ryan Garcia bet $2 million on himself. They're saying he was doing all the antics and acting crazy on purpose because the odds were only going to get better as he kept doing that. So it's like the odds became in favor of Ryan Garcia. If he wanted to win money, $2 million is a lot of. Remember, he agreed to pay a Devin Haney $1.5 million to being overweight.
Yeah,
he paid $2 million on a bet and turned it into $12 million. That's crazy.
That's crazy. I mean, and people forget, like, Ryan Garcia was supposed to. He's considered a top boxer until he ran into Tank. Like, one match does not change that he's not a top boxer. You got to remember that. Like, those odds were crazy to me.
Do you think the rehydration clause caused a factor with the Tank fight? Because there was no rehydration clause this one, and Ryan came in big. Like, he just came in like he was filled in and everything like that. Do you think that plays a factor into that fight with Tank?
I think possibly, yeah. I think because Ryan Garcia is a bigger dude, and he like he said, he wants to fight bigger too, so he's gonna go up in weight. He's naturally a bigger dude than Tank. So yeah, I think, anytime you have to dehydrate yourself, it's gonna affect performance a little bit, or a lot. I don't know how much, but you know, that maybe he was able to take that punch from, you know, when Tank, you know, countered that left hook. So I don't know, man. It may have a lot to do with it. You know, dehydration.
So before we get out of here, the Niners are picking at 31. What's your final prediction on what position? And if you say a position, do you have a player to go with it, or just position is fine as well?
Um, I think the Niners go receiver or corner. I'm gonna lean more towards receiver. If their dude is there at 31, or if they have to move up, I think the Niners will draft a receiver and figure out a way to get another corner in that in the upper part of the draft. They're gonna figure something out.
That's it, everyone. Niners, per Josh Harp, the Niners, and you can go out and tweet this. Niners are getting Marvin Harrison Jr. They're trading up for Marvin Harrison Jr. They're getting a receiver. No, but that's cool though, because like if they do get a receiver, it's for the future plans, and hopefully it's a guy that could step in right away. Hopefully it causes Kyle Shanahan with 3-4 good receivers to go more pass happy. Yeah. Make sure you guys tune in on no Niner gang. You stay here. Me and Jesse will be dual streaming, so you stay here. Stay on the Clutch Jeans. Nah, just kidding. Go to Jesse's channel. Go to my channel. Make sure you guys are tuning in. It'll be me, Jesse, David, and Rohan live streaming the NFL draft, giving our instant reaction to every pick, all the way up until pick 32. You know what? Nah, F the Chiefs. I ain't giving no analyst on the Chiefs pick. But make sure you guys tune in. Thank you all for watching today. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. J Harp II on Twitter. You can also follow his YouTube channel, J Harp. I believe it's Josh Harp TV. Go buy a water bottle for your kid. Hydrate like a pro. You don't want to be dehydrated because you'll get knocked out like Ryan Garcia against Tank Davis. So make sure you get your son a water bottle so he hydrates like a pro.
Yep.
Thank y'all for tuning in. We out.